Aren't you tired of games like this? One of the worst feelings in Apex is dying off drop. But what's even worse is dying with trash loot. It feels unfair, like you never stood a chance. There you are with your P2020 in a dream and everyone around you is landing on Volts and Peacekeepers. But here's the thing when it comes to dying without loot. It's almost entirely preventable with one simple strategy. Don't drop in trash POIs. I know, it sounds simple and it seems so obvious, but it has come to my attention that some of you don't know what a trash POI is. So today I'm here to set the record straight and tell you all the places you should never ever land, except maybe in ranked. Real quick before we get started, I just wanted to clarify what makes a POI trash in the first place. First up is bad overall loot. POIs are not created equal. Some have more loot than others and some have higher quality loot than others. A trash POI will typically not have good quality loot, or even if it does, there's not going to be enough loot for your entire team to leave prepared for a fight. Second is poor landing layout. This is a bit tricky, so I'll explain. The key to victory in Apex is positioning. You want to play at least around your team. A trash POI may force you to land far from your teammates in order to loot up, which makes you an easy target for enemies that stick together. There's a bit more to it than that, but I'll cover it when we get there. Finally, a trash POI has poor rotation quality. Again, positioning is everything in this game. If a POI forces you to rotate through open space with no cover, or if a POI places you on low ground for other rotating squads, you may find yourself dying on the way to the ring. And with that out of the way, number 5. The first POI on this list hurts, but it has to be done. Back in Season 3, playing Pathfinder, Trainyard was a grapple paradise. You could land hot, grab a weapon, and totally abuse the floating cars. Now, it's basically just a hole in the ground. The loot was nerfed intentionally to stop people from landing here, but that doesn't stop your randoms. Along with bad loot, Landslide is right out in the open and just begging for a push from Countdown or even staging depending on the ring. It does provide quick access to Fragment, but that's the only real benefit. It's not the worst, but you really don't want to land here, especially contested. There's barely enough loot here for one team. If more than one team decides to land at Landslide, you're going to be in for a bad time. In at number 4, we've got Hillside, another POI that's maintained popularity despite being nerfed. This one kind of makes sense though. On paper, it's a named POI with a mid-tier loot rating, and it's right next to the action at containment. So in theory, you can loot up and rotate quickly for the third party. Or at least, that's what you think will happen. In reality, you will usually scramble for the handful of weapons here, fight the other team that inevitably landed with you, and once you survive that, you'll have to deal with the random teams that somehow always pop up from the top of the hill. I don't know what it is that attracts people to this area, but it seems like once one fight begins here, the fights never stop. It's a never-ending wave of enemies after you fire the first bullet. All the while, teams a million miles away at Diving Board and Bunker Hill will be shooting you even though they have no intention to push. Hillside has the unfortunate downside of being an open space that can be shot at from way too many angles. Back when there were buildings here, it was a little bit better. You could make some interesting plays using the various buildings as cover. But now, fighting here just puts you at a major disadvantage. It's totally not worth it. Bet you didn't see this one coming. At number 3, we have Antenna. Let me just start by saying I love the idea behind this POI. It's an actual antenna in the ground. So the layout is a giant bowl with overhanging bridges, and all the bridges meet at a point in the middle. It's really cool. But that's where the positives end for me. This place sucks. You can always tell a POI is bad when even gameplay channels on YouTube don't land there. You might be fooled by the loot quality indicator to think that the loot here is good, but this is a lie. If you and your team land at the same building, one of you is guaranteed to not get a weapon. But if you land at separate buildings, you have to run an Olympic marathon just to regroup. There is one exception to this though. Down in the middle of the bowl, there are tons of bins usually containing solid loot. But also down in the bowl, everyone can shoot at you. And the only safe escape is a zip line up to the middle building where you will be pushed from all sides. On top of all that, half the time ring rotations will force you into Jurassic Park. And if that's not enough for a spot on this list, I don't know what is. While most of the spots so far have been pretty bad, at least I could kind of understand why people land at them. This one has never made sense to me. I'll bet you didn't even know this place had a name, cause I sure didn't. Maybe I'm just unlucky with my randoms. But time after time when the dropship comes in near Stormwatch, my random jump master will make a beeline toward this spot. I wish I had footage of every time this happens. As I was recording for this video, I couldn't believe how many times I had teammates actually bringing me here. The 3 buildings here barely have enough loot for a team in duos, let alone landing contested in a trios game. There's basically no cover outside of the buildings. It's super far away from everything. There is literally nothing here for you. Why are my teammates landing here? Even if you kill the squad that lands with you, you'll likely have no heals and no ammo. Oh, this place is so bad. Stop landing here. Before I give you my most hated PO, the objectively worst POI in the game, I do have a few honorable mentions. At one point, Hammond Labs had a guaranteed gold loot spot. It was still trash, but at least it kind of made sense when people landed here. For some reason though, last season, people kept landing here even though the gold loot spot had been removed. Maybe people just didn't know, so I'm here to spread the word. Hammond is the worst spot on Olympus and it should be avoided like the plague. I don't know what it is about Apex players, but if there's a hole, you guys will dive in it, even if there's barely any loot there. Hammond Labs. Command Center avoided this list though, because it can be fun at times to land there, and it actually has lots of loot if you don't go down the hole. Plus, it has quite a few ways to escape. I know some of you thought this would be my #1 spot, and honestly, if you had asked me last season, it probably would have been. The loot had been noticeably nerfed, and yet every game, the entire lobby would still land here. It was infuriating, and it made no sense. But this season, they rebuffed the loot a bit, and it's actually felt better. I still want them to do something new with World's Edge, but Fragment, in honesty, is a pretty well designed POI. Good loot and good rotations. I really can't honestly complain about it. So what is my actual #1? The OG worst spot in the game. The reason why I made this list. I hate Bunker. There's enough loot here for one team, maybe, but it seems like there's always at least 4 teams landing here, and my randoms love to make sure that we're one of them. If you're a defensive legend like Caustic, I can see the appeal of Bunker. You can set up traps and make life miserable for everyone. But why is the random Octane who thrives in open space making a mad dash for this death trap? On the off chance that you actually get a gun, and it is an off chance, entering the bunker itself is practically suicide. There's one long hallway and only one door on either side, and you can guarantee that there's someone outside that door waiting to shoot you the moment you step out. Fights in Bunker take way too long, and it's one of the busiest areas in the map, so third parties are a given here. If you don't have a legend who can bunker down, no pun intended, you're just inviting your own demise. It's a trash location with trash loot and trash rotations. There is no reason anyone should ever land at Bunker. I'm pretty sure Respawn could remove this location and hardly anybody would complain. Nobody cares about you, Caustic. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Do you agree with my list, or are you wrong? Let me know in the comments below. Also, remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.